Sports Counterpoints podcast. We are back. It's GB, Brian, and Coop on the lines on the video. What's up with it?
What's going on? Good to see you guys.
Doing?
I see
Just,
Coop
just,
over here
just,
repping Niners.
yeah. We might go 9-8 this year, but I'm still adjusting it though. It's all right.
Y'all got a chance, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, so it's May 25th, 2022. Shout out to my sister whose birthday is Sunday. What's up, Cressa? Happy birthday. So yeah, we got the talking about the NBA playoffs, which are in full swing. Let's talk about that. I'm kind of disappointed about how these series have gone. We'll talk about that. Coop kind of wanted to have a couple thoughts on Miami, Philly, as well as Phoenix, Dallas. With Philly, we'll talk a little bit about James Harden, James Softon right now. We'll talk about the current series, and then also a little bit of college football with that Nick Saban talk. So let's start off with the playoffs, man. Let's start with what's past, Coop, because you had mentioned you kind of had some thoughts on Miami, Philly, and Phoenix, Dallas, and how we got here. So let's
Well,
start
man, I'll start with Phoenix, Dallas, man,
Okay, do it.
because this series really intrigued me. Because I think I watched probably 6 out of the 7 games, and it was just amazing to me how Phoenix couldn't stop Luka. I mentioned on our last podcast that with Chris Paul, he usually runs out of gas about this time of the season, and it looks like he did it once again. He just wasn't himself. I don't know if you guys have seen those stats when he turned 37 on May 6th, but his turnovers went up significantly every game since then. But I think that Phoenix should be happy that they lost by 40 game 7 against Dallas. And here's why: because losing brings clarity. Phoenix is not going to win any titles with the way this team is constructed right now. This is pretty much evidence that Devin Booker is not a superstar, something I never bought into, that people tried to convince me last season. It's just, he's not a superstar. They need to get rid of Ayton and get a true number one scorer, a guy who can, get buckets consistently and not, fade like Booker does in the playoffs. If they got a score and traded Ayton, because I don't think Ayton helps when they're down in points, they just need to, Phoenix doesn't shoot threes well, so they need a guy who can pretty much give them points, and Ayton doesn't give them that when they're down. And the fact that they couldn't do what Boston did. Boston couldn't stop Giannis, but they stopped everybody else. Phoenix couldn't stop everybody else, and they couldn't stop Luka, and that was their demise. Currently, that's what the Warriors are doing right now. They're stopping everybody else while Luka is getting his. Now, they didn't stop him last game, but it's going to be over pretty soon. We'll talk about that later. But basically, this current version of the Suns team is not going to win any titles. And also, they need to limit Chris Paul's minutes so he doesn't fade down the stretch like he did in this series and in the past as well. So I would suggest them bringing in a point guard who can play a lot of minutes up to the playoffs, and a lot of playoff minutes as well, to sort of keep Chris Paul fresh and healthy. So that's why this series intrigued me and why I want to talk about it, because now Phoenix has clarity. What they have is not going to get it done. So got any thoughts on it, B?
Yeah, I'm actually just trying to figure out why you were talking about a team when you basically just trashed everybody. You said they don't got it. They ain't gonna come. Chris Paul ain't the guy. Booker ain't the guy. Ayton ain't the guy. They don't got any more guys, man.
I didn't say Chris Paul wasn't the guy. He's good. It's just that he's failed too many times in this situation. I mean, this is his fifth 2-0 lead he lost. I mean, how much more proof do you need?
How many of those 2-0 leads that he lost did he finish the series healthy? And he was relatively healthy. I don't think you gave an age-based stat where after his
37th
birthday.
Yeah.
But I mean, he was damn near perfect for the first part of the playoffs. Got a little dinged up, but he wasn't hurt. But more importantly, a very good young defensive specialist, made a career name for himself out of playing wonderful defense. I don't know that it's Chris Paul is whack more than this young player did what he needed to do to give his team an opportunity, and more power to him. But anyways, I just think it's surprising. I don't disagree with you. I've never been a Booker fan. We've always been on the same page there. And Ayton is definitely not the guy. I'm pretty sure they want to let him go this offseason anyway. That's always been kind of the talk. So I don't know that there's that there. And Chris Paul is a great veteran who can do a whole lot to take a good team and make them great. And that's exactly what he did with Phoenix.
Yeah.
And they were nothing without him. They had 18 wins or something like that, 27 wins. before he got there. But he's done as much as he can do with a team that just doesn't have a superstar or a collection of superstars, and that's just Phoenix. I don't know that there's no small change to make to this Phoenix team that's going to get them from a great season contender, top seed, 1 or 2 seed, and somebody who's going to perennially go out, because that's the team that they are. The only way that they're going to fix that, which you said kind of, is you just blow it up and start over. This isn't a team that's going to win a championship.
Well, I wouldn't say blow it up. I'm just saying get rid of Ayton for a score, and then try to get somebody in there for Chris Paul, to, not that Chris Paul's not great and doesn't have value, but just sort of limit his minutes during the regular season so he doesn't play so much, because he's wearing down too late in the season and getting, nicked up. So if they do that, right, I think that's the only way they have a chance. But right now, though, I agree that they should have brought this team back to try to, do it again. But now all the evidence is there. It's just not going to happen. So
I guess I'll just remain confused on how you don't trust Booker, Ayton, or Paul in a playoffs, but it's not really a blow it up situation.
No,
like
Booker can be a high end number 2 player.
If they add Luka, then maybe they'll be good enough to make it further.
Booker can be a high end number 2 player. I mean, do you see him as a number 1? I don't.
Right, but if you need to add a number 1 player, you're blowing up the team. You can't take the guy who's number 1, throw him down to number 2, tell the guy who the point guard, say, hey, you don't want to play any minutes, and get rid of the center, the team, team 3, and then say, well, we're just making a small adjustment to the team. That's not a small adjustment. That's a new team.
No, not getting rid of the point guard. Keep
you
Booker.
Might as well rename him.
No, not getting rid of the point guard, limiting his minutes. You cannot keep playing Chris Paul 35 minutes a game. You can't do it. It's breaking down. And Ayton, you don't need a number 1. You just need a scorer. Ayton's not going to get it done for you. No value.
I agree with everything you're saying. I just think there's nothing to do with that team. Like they're not going to win a championship.
Yeah.
As currently constructed, and there is no one player that you can go and get rid of Ayton and bring in some guy who can play a bunch of minutes. That's going to
talk about players and forgetting all they need is Doc Rivers.
Right.
They'll be fine. They'll be just fine.
Now, one thing I am certain of, Glenn is not part of the Doc Rivers fan club.
Not as a record label, as a staff, but
or a crew.
As a family man, God bless him and his people. You know what I'm saying?
Now, moving on from that series, B, how you feel about this Dallas Golden State? I mean, it's almost over, but any thoughts on it?
Is it?
So at the beginning of the playoffs, I said if Golden State could find a way to bring all that talent together quickly, they could get to the finals and possibly win a championship. They've done it. They're playing great basketball. Even when Poole, who was super hot to begin the playoffs, has come back down to the stratosphere. He's still playing great basketball.
Right.
He's now in stratosphere. He's not in space. Even with him coming back down into the stratosphere, they're playing great basketball. And they got Kerr back. There was a little bumpy when they had the assistant coach.
Mike Brown.
Things. Yeah. They got Kerr back and offense is rolling. I honestly think, and we'll probably talk about this later. If not, I'll be talking about it later. I honestly think the reason that they lost this last game had nothing to do with basketball and everything to do with them being great people whose minds were elsewhere because of the events of the day. And Kerr said it. Today's not about basketball. We'll go play basketball and that'll be okay. Yeah. And Curry said it. It's like how it's hard to be focused when other things have happened. I think that's the reason they lost that game. So do I think they're going to come out and finish this off in the next game? Absolutely.
Yeah. I think we both thought Dallas was playing with house money at this point. Golden State has just done a good job. Well, Dallas has had open threes. I mean, they just open shots. They just been missing. But I got to give the Warriors some credit for, limiting the other guys, even though, Luka's been doing his thing. But one man's not going to get it done. I expect the Warriors to blow Dallas out this next game. But now I personally think, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I just personally think that the reason the Warriors lost last game is because that's what they do. Every time I sent you guys, a little meme or whatever, but every time, they're in this spot. That's why even before the shooting happened or before I knew about it, I thought Dallas was going to win because Golden State usually just, they lay an egg, sometimes in this situation, or a few times in this situation, they did it again. So, but like I said, but that's not saying that I don't think they were thinking about also what happened in Texas. I mean, who can't think about, what happened in Texas during that time?
I don't know that it's laying an egg just because NBA teams are great, filled with great basketball players. Worst basketball player on the team is a great basketball player. It's not a whole lot of sweeps in Western Conference Finals. Or conference finals in general. It's just not a lot of sweeps there. So, it's not unexpected, but I do think you could kind of see what was going on before the game and with the comments, the things that they were talking about. Dallas didn't make any of those comments. They didn't talk about that. Jason Kidd didn't talk about that.
Yeah.
Luka wasn't talking about that. And you could kind of tell that Golden State, who clearly has better people on their team, had their minds in a couple different places.
Yeah. Good. Any thoughts on the series that's about to be over tomorrow?
Man, that's funny. No, I don't. Dallas, they had chances for sure. They missed tons of open shots.
Yeah.
Last game too, they had a lead in almost all these games, and they just couldn't sustain it. So I'm not too surprised. But to that point, they're way further ahead than anyone thought they would be. No one had Dallas going to the Western Conference Finals. Nobody. So I'm not too surprised they're where they are right now. But
if Dallas loses in the first round of the playoffs next year, would you be surprised? Because I wouldn't.
Nope.
We wouldn't have been surprised. We were expecting them to lose this year.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I think that they took advantage of advantageous matchups.
100%.
And more power to them. That's what you're supposed to do.
Heck yeah.
And nothing builds a future like having some history.
Yep.
Jason Kidd has proven that he's a good coach. The team will now trust him because he's gotten them to this point. They've got some work to do on that roster. You can't have Jalen Brunson dropping 30 as your option for a number 2 behind Luka.
Yeah, you can't do
that. And that's not to say that he's not capable of becoming a solid number 2. He's just not there yet. And if you're going to depend on that, you're going to get exactly what's happened. He's going to have a great game, good game, whatever you want to call it, and then not so good game, and they're going to lose. You can't win championships with that type of a setup. So for at least another year or two, they're going to need to find somebody who can be that number 2 guy. Maybe they'll make a trade for Booker.
That actually is kind of a good idea on the low.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I didn't know this. Maybe you guys knew it, but I didn't know it. So in the playoffs, the number 1 person in the past 2 playoffs, the usage rate is the highest is Luka, and it's been higher than the regular season. So that's bad.
Yeah. I can see that.
I never knew that. That's bad.
Yeah, I knew it. That. And here's the thing. I don't think Luka makes people better.
No, not at all.
And I think that's a problem. Now, he has a great stat line. So does Harden. So do a lot of other people. He's a great stat line, but does he make people better? Just because you get 8 or 9 assists does not mean you made the people that you were passing to better. It means that you gave them the ball with 3 seconds left and they made 9 out of 20.
Yeah, that's called the Russell Westbrook. That's called the Russell Westbrook, Brian.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So I just don't. I don't think people want to make Luka into the next guy. Luka's always going to be entertaining. He's clearly skilled. There's no doubting the talent. There's no doubting the talent of Trey, who I'm also not a huge fan of.
Sure.
There's just tons of talented guys. It doesn't mean
Booker
that they're. And Booker have always been kind of at the middle. I didn't think he's in the other one.
Yeah.
John Morant and Trey, I'm down on.
Brian, you're also, one thing about you is you're very big on people not being crowned until they've actually proven something within the league. Yep. So most of those guys you just mentioned were touted as the next star before they did.
Crown their ass.
Right. Can't stand it, man.
You and I are in the same boat in that one. I just earn it. But anyways, they got some work to do on that team, and they're gonna do it. The biggest loser in the Dallas, the Dallas Rising in this series, it's the Lakers, who are gonna look at Jason Kidd and go, "Whoops." We absolutely had the right guy in the building, and we let him go, and here they are, because there's no way Dallas is letting them go.
Yeah, not now.
Yeah.
Nope. Yeah, that was it's over. But I'm kind of. It's funny that Coop mentioned that earlier, because they do not close out games on the road. So they
Who?
definitely like the Warriors.
No,
They show
they
like
don't. They have a
they don't.
history.
And understandably, right? If your back's
Yeah.
against the wall, your NBA team, as Brian said, you guys have star athletes,
Mm.
the best athletes in your city. You know what I mean, top to
Yeah.
bottom, coming out of high school. Of course, you should at least win that one game. But
Yeah.
Warriors,
But
man,
like
they
Curry
get
said,
smacked though. They don't even be close. They get
yeah, but
smacked.
like Curry said in his post game, we don't have passion. It's evident in the first half. You could just see it like, oh yeah, they about to lose this game. I mean, so when they were down 30, it wasn't surprising. I mean, there was no effort. This is what they
Right.
do. You
Dallas
know?
was hitting those shots when
And
Luke was
the
throwing it to him.
bench came back for him though. I mean,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
bench came back. Yeah, the bench
Yeah, they were
did. Yeah.
down 8 with a couple
Yeah.
minutes left. So.
Right. I turned
they
it back
just
on.
got
110,
gassed.
102.
It was like 5 minutes, no, 3 minutes left, and that bench team that had brought them all the way back
Yeah.
was gassed. They were starting to get hurt.
Right.
They tried to
Yeah.
bring the starters in to get it done, and they went back and did exactly what they were doing before.
Right.
They
Right.
just-
Yeah, not good.
Right.
Word up.
Shit.
So what about the East Coast? What y'all think about the Boston, Miami, the injury series?
Man. So
Hurt Locker.
I've had Boston win the title since game 3 of the Brooklyn series. I still got them barely. But the thing about Miami is that AAU team with that has 1.5 talented players, and the other players aren't that talented, but they sort of went off a hustle and grit. And then Boston is the more talented team, and they just have to, play with some passion, in order to win games. Because if you look at the last, few games that Boston has won in this playoffs, I mean, they beat what? It was Milwaukee. They beat them by what? They beat them by 13, then closed them out by winning by 28. Then they beat Miami. They beat them by 25. They beat them by 20. And today, I think they beat them by like 18 or 20. So
Damn.
these games aren't even close. Boston has the talent. They just have to have the passion and actually want to come out and actually try to win. And when they do that, they can beat Miami, which is another reason why I was sort of rooting for Boston and the Warriors, because I think that's the best possible finals matchup. I think Miami is too just offensively challenged, and they just have too many scoring droughts where they just go 7 minutes without a bucket. And against the Warriors, that's not going to be a good thing. So I just think personally, aesthetically, that Boston Golden State gives us the best matchup. And I know Golden State's going to be there. I'm just hoping Boston can pull it out. But as far as the injuries, Tatum is not himself, but he was able to score some buckets in the second half. And Miami, like Brian alluded to before we started, I mean, Miami's beat up. What you think about the series, B?
So you and I both had Boston and Golden State getting there. I didn't pick a team to win in the finals, but I did say that I thought Boston was playing some of the best basketball in all of the NBA when they started by taking down Brooklyn and went to Milwaukee and then now in Miami. I think it's clear that Boston's going to win this series. I think the reason that they're going to win this series, and I can feel comfortable in that, is because of the injuries in Miami. When you got 5 players who are serious contributors, one of which is their only guy, Jimmy Butler, who are all banged up, and you go into warmups not knowing whether these guys are going to play or not going to play. That's a lot to overcome as a team when you're playing top talent. You can do that against the Charlotte Bobcats on a Wednesday night in the middle of the season.
Did you just
and
say
be okay with
Bobcats?
it.
Yeah, he
Did you
sure
just say
did.
Bobcats?
I called them the Bobcats. But you can do that there, but you can't do that in the Eastern Conference Finals playing a team like Boston. And Boston's taking advantage of it. I mean, you can only do so much when you're not at 100%. And I think this is, losing gives clarity, as you said earlier. I think Miami is going to realize that they're going to have to be able to get a little bit younger, or they're going to have to find a solid number 2. Pat Riley's game plan has worked tremendously. Play hard 100% of the time, be the more physical team. It has gotten them here by playing that Pat Riley brand of basketball. But in order to get to the next place, the next level, which is to go to the finals and win, because they've been there before, they lost to the Lakers, they're going to have to get somebody other than Jimmy Butler who can be a serious contributor, who can be the number 1 when Jimmy can't play or isn't the number 1 for whatever the reason is.
Yeah. And you just said it. What a lot of people don't recognize is in the playoffs, sometimes your number 2, a couple games in the series, has to be your number 1.
Absolutely.
And Miami doesn't have that. And Jimmy Butler is beat up too. And I could tell he was beat up because he wasn't being aggressive a lot during the game. He was passing a lot of shots, passing up a lot of shots. So he's beat up as well. And if he's beat up, Miami is pretty much done.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, 100%. There's an old saying that says, you want me to tell you who's going to win. Don't tell me about the number one. Tell me about the number two
right,
guy,
right,
right? Because everyone's got a number one guy at
yeah,
this level.
Yeah.
Not everybody has that number two guy.
yeah, and that's why I'm not about to go down this road, but everybody talks about LeBron lost 6 finals, and I've always said, well, who is his number two? Ilgauskas? Because if Ilgauskas is your number two, you ain't winning nothing. You know what I'm saying? So if Wade's your number two, you got a chance. Pippen's your number two. If Curry's your number two, you got a chance to win titles. So if Boobie Gibson and Danielle Marshall is your number two, you could just forget it, buddy. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. But yeah, it's always about your number two, though. A lot of people don't understand that in the NBA. That's who I look at to see if he has a real chance to win a title.
That is funny.
But
Damn,
yeah,
shout out to Boobie Gibson. That's damn
man,
funny. The boy's name. His mama didn't call him
Hey,
Boobie. Mama
right,
called him Daniel. I'm gonna call him Daniel.
right. You know
Hey,
what I'm saying?
that year, I made a bet with somebody and picked him in a fantasy basketball league, and I don't really do fantasy basketball anymore, and cleaned up when he was on Cleveland that one season where he was just he fired. Oh yeah, man.
Oh yeah, he was shooting threes. Yeah.
He was a stat monster.
Yeah.
For everything except for field goal and 3-point percentage.
Right.
Yeah, he had the green light.
Right.
That was that. We're gonna lose 60 games, so I'm gonna score 50 points.
That's hella funny. But so I've heard a lot. This is just a general question. I've heard a lot about how these playoffs have just been great, just been fantastic. All I've seen is a lot of damn blowouts. I don't know what you guys feel about the playoffs.
Yes. When I was saying at the beginning, I'm kind of disappointed with how they've turned out. That's exactly what I'm referencing. Exactly.
Yeah, it's just been blowouts. I mean, when you lose game 7 by 40, that's a disgrace. Seriously, I'm sorry. Because everybody's supposed to be tired and beat up at that time, and you lose by 40 at the house. I don't think I've ever seen that before. So I've seen people lose by 40 while, on the road, but I don't think I've never seen it at the house.
I mean, in a game 7, though, that's rare, man.
Right.
It's rare that I'm not watching a game 7 till the end, at least close.
Right.
Not like I've been had it off.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's not a lot of fourth quarters that have been necessary watching. Like you can probably watch the first half, and then most games you can go, okay, I'm done here and all.
Right.
I've watched the second halves, but it's not been must see TV for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, not by any means. I 100% agree. I haven't been at all impressed, and it's been a lot of these games. So I don't know what's happening. Usually, as you get further down the playoffs, the games get tighter, not further away as far as the deficits that people are losing by. But all right, so we'll see. Warriors will move on, and we'll see what happens in the East.
Hey, for that last point, speaking of clarity, man, I think Milwaukee got some clarity because they took Boston to 7 games with pretty much one player. I still wholeheartedly believe if Chris Middleton was playing, they would have beaten Boston.
But, absolutely.
But
if Chris Middleton were playing, they might be in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, right. That would still be my pick for the finals. But the thing is, though, I didn't know this. Drew Holiday was 56 from 154 in that series against Boston. He shot 36%. I know Drew Holiday. I've heard of the name. I know he could play a little bit. I didn't know he was that bad. Is he that bad of a shooter? Is he just mainly a defensive player?
I mean, the reason why you're mentioning the stat is because it was an abnormal event. Right?
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah, he's a pretty solid player. He did not play well in the playoffs.
Okay.
And they needed him to.
Yeah.
The reason that he works on that team was that he was always an option. He was a Vinny the Microwave. He was a guy who, you didn't need to count on to have a chance to win, but could be the difference in winning or losing in some games. And without Middleton, he needed to be more than that, and he wasn't. He didn't.
Okay.
Step up.
All right.
What Coop, you mentioned something you about Harden. Like what was your question there?
Well, the thing about Harden is, well, actually, it's about Philly as well. Do you think that Philly needs to bring in somebody to supplement Harden, or would you just go in next year with just Harden and Embiid and Tobias Harris and see if you can just, run it back again? Because personally, I wouldn't.
Here's the thing. I've been real clear on this for years. No team's going to win anything with Harden on it. Period. Can't do it. Won't happen. So
okay, Mike Singletary.
All right, Singletary. Can't win with
Can't win with them. But anyways, so trying to figure out whether or not one player or another player or supplemental player, if Harden's still on the team,
Yeah.
you can't win. And Embiid is really good, but you can't win with Harden. That team screwed up when they let Jimmy Butler go, because Jimmy Butler
Yeah.
and Embiid focused team without Ben Simmons and with Tobias Harris,
Yep.
that is a team that would have been very formidable, because you have players who could play hard on both sides of the court, that could complement each other, that liked each other.
Yep.
And they messed that up. So yeah, there's no one player that you're going to bring in that into that team that it still includes Harden. That's going to make a difference.
Okay.
And
GB. Oh, go ahead, B. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, then we should go back to and talk about Harden specifically after GB's done.
Yeah, GB. You got any thoughts on Philly?
Oh man, I don't know. I mean, I just don't know if they like that whole core, and Doc Rivers is coaching. They got to the playoffs and they won games. But I
Wait,
mean,
who's coaching again? Who's coaching?
Dr. Rivers. Dr. Rivers MD, man. I just can't. I just don't trust him coaching games unless he's coaching that one series with Boston, man. Like, it just ain't it. Unless you're gonna have 3 Hall of Famers on the team, you ain't gonna do it. So I don't know. I like Embiid, but is he enough? You know what I mean? I think he needs a complimentary piece, and it ain't Harden. It wasn't Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm with you on that.
They got to get somebody. I don't know if it's gonna be in the draft or if they're gonna get somebody to come over there or what, but got to do something, because that ain't it.
Just for the record, they beat us that year because Andrew Bynum did not play. It was hurt. And when we had Andrew Bynum 2 years ago, 2 years after we beat them. Okay, yeah. So that actually helped Boston. The injuries, but injuries are part of the playoffs. I mean, it happens. That's how Toronto got a title. Injuries. I mean, it happens.
Man,
but
I was thinking about that today.
That you just talked about Andrew Bynum as the difference maker.
Yeah. Well,
I love
we
you
won
for
with
it.
him.
I love you for it, but
I mean,
we needed size, Brian. We needed size.
You went deep into the basket to find that one.
We needed size, man, against them. We can't have Radmanovich.
Absolutely.
Radmanovich and Lamar Odom getting rebounds. That ain't gonna work out.
And when you said size, you meant height, not hand speed.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Right?
There you go. Right. I mean height. There you go. That's right. Somebody that could just grab a rebound.
The joke with Andrew Bynum.
Yeah, he's small hands. But with James Harden, though, I noticed it. One thing I try to do with all players in any sport is just look at players for what they are at the present moment, not what I want them to become or what they were in the past. And with James Harden, I noticed it right away. Man, he can't get past people anymore. He's just, this 2 year, they got the 2 year, they thought they were getting the Houston James Harden. That is over. It's done. So James Harden is going to have to, he's been more of a facilitator in these playoffs because, he's can't really get those same shots he was getting before. He can't blow past anybody and try to get those phantom fouls and things like that. So, I'm with you, Brian. As long as he's on the team, you're not winning. But and he has a player option for $47 million next year. So it's just like, dude, I mean, he's eligible for an extension too of like a ton of money. I don't know who's going to pay him that, but I just think it's over for Harden. I think it's the decline has started, Brian.
So I don't think it's ever been about his physical decline, because the guy's always been fat.
Damn.
So
I know, right? Like, damn, bro.
Club chicken wings can put on the pounds, I guess. Yes. But what I think, if you look at his stats, and I was looking at this a couple of days ago and again earlier, he has lost he hasn't lost a step. What he's lost is the ability to get the calls. You called them the phantom fouls. When they made the rule change,
it's a good point.
That didn't allow him. You can draw a line in his career.
Yeah.
Right there, and if you go look before, he could go and do the pump fakes and get the fouls and throw it up and basically getting free shots, right? Yep. Because he'd draw some ridiculously light contact, but still be able to take an uncontested 3-point shot or 2-point shot, which if it went in, it counts. Helps his field goal percentage, 3-point percentage. If it doesn't go in, it doesn't count because of the foul, right? So that's that thing that's not there. That is a great deal for a volume shooter like James Harden. And when you see that line get drawn, when they said, hey, you're not going to get those foul calls anymore, his ability to, 1, get off as many 2- and 3-point shots, 2, improve his field goal percentage, 3, in his attempts per game went down dramatically because he's not getting those. And ultimately it reduced his points production by 10 points. he's exactly the same player. It just doesn't play as well in the NBA with the new rules. And yeah, of course, that's not going to change. As a matter of fact, it's a great rule that
Yeah.
I think has improved the value of watching some basketball, because I hated watching James Harden play. Hated it.
Yeah.
Couldn't stand it. There was nothing enjoyable about watching him play.
Right.
I enjoyed watching Westbrook. I didn't say he's better, but I
Right.
enjoyed watching Westbrook play
Right.
because at least he was energetic and going to the rim and attacking and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Where James Harden was looking for bailouts all the time. But anyways, I think that is what changed Harden. I don't think you could fix it because you're not going to change the rules. And unless he goes out this summer and it develops a actual shot where he doesn't need the extra 3 shots a game that he was getting for free when he could get the foul calls, that's 9 points right there, 3 threes that he was getting.
Yeah. You know who James Harden remind me of, Brian? He reminds me of Karl Malone. Karl Malone was not the same player in the playoffs either. Their efficiency, production, or whatever, they just weren't the same player. They didn't have Karl Malone didn't have too many great playoff games. I don't think anybody remembers any great playoff games or shots or whatever. And that's because his game was also predicated on getting the whistle and getting free throws. He shot a lot of free throws in the regular season. He didn't shoot it like that when the games were more physical in the playoffs. And
I agree with you that there's a difference. I mean, Harden's problem isn't the playoffs though, right? He's just not that guy with the way the plays are called. What happened for Karl Malone, I completely agree with you. When you got to the playoffs, they stopped giving you the ticky-tack calls, which he lived on.
Yeah.
He'd go spend 5 minutes on the free throw line and take a break and go smoke a cigarette and drink a beer before he'd throw one up. But the way that they changed, the way that they were calling from the playoffs to the regular season impacted him. Now it's just the way that they're calling the game in general with James Harden, and he can't adjust.
Yeah.
Just like Malone couldn't in the playoffs.
And there's one rule that they're talking about changing. I hope they get rid of it. It's when, I guess, somebody messes up on one end and they'll throw up a bad shot. The other team's trying to go on a fast break and somebody just takes that foul. I hate that. I absolutely hate it.
Yeah, that loose ball foul.
Yeah, I hate it. I mean, let me see a fast break, man. I mean, if you mess up on defense, you give up a pointer, whatever, a dunk, then you just give it up. But I hate that. I hate when players take that foul. As a fan, I mean, as a player, I understand why you do it. It's advantageous to you, but as a fan of the game, I don't want to see that. So I hope they get rid of it for next season. They're going to supposedly vote on it.
No, didn't they do? Don't you get the
foul in the ball?
Yeah,
well, yeah.
You get a clear path, but a clear path has to be on the other side of the half court line, and you have to have nobody else in front of the ball.
Right.
So, now what you can do is you just have one guy who stays at the top of the key, sprint, so you have somebody on the other side of the ball. It doesn't have to actually be close or in the play.
Right.
And then the other guy can go and take the foul, and it's just the ball out or foul out.
Yeah, but now they say if it's a fast break like that, even if you take that foul, the other team's going to shoot a technical free throw and still get the ball. So let that guy back there try to play D if he's going to play D at all. So, yeah.
The only thing I worry about with that is you're going to start seeing a lot more of these Gary Payton type fouls.
What do you mean?
When Gary Payton got hurt, like he's just going up for a layup and the guy just came and sideswiped him.
Yeah.
So you're going to have people who are able to make it look like they're making a necessary play on the ball when really they're just head hunting because they don't have they don't feel like there's anything else to do.
Yeah.
When you're out of position, they're not going to give up the layup. I mean, certainly not the Miami Heat are not going to give it the layup. Pat Riley will have them running until their 27 your kid's 27th birthday. But anyways,
neither with Dylan Brooks. He won't give up a layup.
I was gonna say,
he'll
bro,
break your forearm.
Well, but
you got
Dylan Brooks hurt Gary Payton by going for that type of out of position play. He wasn't really going for the ball. He was trying to just foul him in what might look like the act of making a defensive play.
Right.
You'll get more of that if you have guys who are out of position but need to make a play and can't give up the fast break. That's the only thing.
Yep.
We're gonna see. Interesting. Okay. So that's pretty much NBA talk. I think that's cool. You guys had mentioned kind of shifting gears and switching over to college football and specifically Nick Saban's comments in regards to recruiting.
I know you dug into this, Brian. I know you dug into this. You got to be ready for this. Okay, that's what I'm talking about.
Like what are y'all? First of all, let's read the quote.
Jason.
No, I want you to start. So you start this one.
Yep. Okay. Well, the first thing I do is I split it. I split it in two. because you have what Nick Saban was talking about, which is, he made if you listen to what they actually hear him say it, watch the video. I know that he picked on Texas A&M because he used them by name, but you could tell he wasn't trying to be derogatory in it. But anyways, what he says is everyone on Texas A&M was bought and paid for. But what he's talking about, and he's clear about this in his quote, is that they all got NIL deals. And the reason for that, which we all know, is Texas A&M has deep, deep, deep pockets in its alumni. Deep pockets. It's oil money. It's GOP money. It's real significant money that they have, and they are able to get those those folks NIL deals. Alabama does not have that kind of alumni. They've got a great sports program, and that sports program generates money for them, and that's how they do what they do. But Texas A&M just got money, and so they're able to go and make sure that these players also get NIL deals, which is supposed to be kind of technically illegal, but isn't also not. The team itself is not supposed to organize the NIL deals. And so what Nick Saban is kind of saying is the team is saying, hey, boosters, make sure these guys get paid.
That's how you saw it?
That's what he was saying. And he clarified it later on. Now, I know that he's got a history with Jimbo Fisher and all the whole nine, and that's all fair and dandy. So there's that, right? But what he was asking for, he's like, oh, the NCAA needs to do something about this. No, they don't. Absolutely not. So the reason why he wants them to do it is because Texas A&M has money and Alabama does not. Where Alabama has its money is in the program, and the schools can't pay the players themselves. Otherwise, Alabama would be able to pay top dollar, and Texas A&M wouldn't. But because they did it so that the schools themselves can't pay, Texas A&M's got all the money in the damn world. Alabama doesn't. And you're going to see a shift in power because they're going to be able to recruit. Now, we say that, but literally 2 days later, Alabama stole one of Texas A&M's top recruits, and he just signed on. He went back and whatever you want to call
uncommitted or whatever.
Yeah, reopened his search, and then 2 days later picked Alabama. But anyways, so like I said, you have to bifurcate it. What he said, I agree with 100%. Texas A&M paid him. They didn't break any rules, although he thinks that the school organized the NIL deals. They didn't, or maybe they did. Who cares?
Yeah.
And then what should the NCAA do about it? They should do nothing. The NIL is working out, and just because it puts Alabama in a situation where they're not the only team in town, when a Texas A&M, which has never been confused with Alabama from a sports program standpoint, is now able to elevate their play. Same as Oklahoma, by the way. Oklahoma has a lot of deep money. Texas has a lot of deep money. You're going to see some of these schools be able to start fielding competitive teams that compete with Alabama.
Nick, so real quick, he said, so some of his comments were, Nick Saban says, Alabama was second in recruiting last year. A&M was first. A&M bought every player on their team, made a deal for name, image, and likeness. We didn't buy one player, but I don't know if we're going to be able to sustain this in the future because more and more people are doing it. He also said Jackson State paid a guy $1 million last year. That was a really good Division I player to come to school. It was in the paper. They bragged about it. Nobody did anything about it. Jackson State is coached by Deion Sanders, Coach Prime. And the player who he mentioned came out and said, I got $1 million, but my mom's still in a 3-bedroom house with 5 kids. Really?
Mm-hmm.
And Deion, obviously Coach Prime had something to say about it too. So Nick Saban sounds a little salty because it's not working to its advantage this time. But go ahead, Coop.
Yeah, and that's not all he said. He also said Miami Hurricanes, because the Miami Hurricanes, they have a $1 billion booster, and he's signed over 120 University of Miami players to NIL deals. And Saban also said you got Miami Hurricane basketball players making $400,000. So what? I mean, the Saban does not care about parity. Parity to Nick Saban is
Who? What coach does?
Yeah,
They want to
Right.
win.
exactly. Saban doesn't care, but Saban is worried that it's affecting his program because prior to July 2021, he mastered how to recruit, okay, and and how to get top talent to Alabama. Now with the NIL deals and everything, like I said before, USC and Miami's going to come up. Texas A&M is coming up. All these schools are taking advantage of the NIL, and
Yep.
now all these players aren't coming to Alabama now, and Saban is salty about it. So I mean, that's just tough because
Yeah.
anybody who has won 7 national titles, I don't want to hear any crying or complaining from them. And also Fisher, if you listen to what he said, he pretty much said Saban has done things in recruiting that wasn't on the up and up. And I've said this for years. People in
Everyone
college
knows
football, exact right. People in college football have been getting paid for decades, and the SEC pays more than anybody. They've been doing that for years. So Nick Saban is not clean as he thinks he is. Jimbo Fisher isn't clean as well. None of these coaches are clean. And I don't even care if the players are making money off NIL deals. So what? If Alabama doesn't win no more, so what? I don't really care about.
that.
Nobody's feeling sorry for Nick Saban at all.
Jason, I think it's a couple of years ago now, because it was at the last place. This is exactly what I said would be able to happen if we could get college players paid, because now you've added parity. There's no way that Jackson State is going to be able to get a player who is as good as Travis Hunter to go and play there when he can make that kind of money elsewhere. Now he's got a deal with J5 Cafe, and I think it is right around $1 million, but it's spread out over years.
Mhm.
So, tomato. But anyways, the kid deserves the money. And the point is that not only did that happen, he got the money and he's going to Jackson State.
Yeah.
That's nothing better could possibly happen in college sports. This is exactly what we needed, is to add parity. You can't be mad because Jackson State happens to have one booster who's got his own coffee company
Right.
and happened to sign the player. Like, that's what the deal is supposed to do. That's how this is supposed to add parity. This is how this is supposed to work.
Well, I've watched college football for so long. I don't think it's ever going to be parity. I remember they said that when they limited scholarship deals. I don't really care about parity. It's going to be the same team. It's going to be the Alabamas, the USCs, the Texas A&M, and Miami's if they get good. It's going to be the same. Ohio State. It's going to be the same teams. But
I don't know that it's going to be the same teams.
Really?
I think you're going to have different teams. Alabama does. Saban's complaining because he really does have a problem. That school does not have the boosters that the other schools have. They have a program that makes money. USC has billionaires.
Yeah.
Stanford has billionaires. Oklahoma has $1 billion from T. Boone Pickens, who basically set them up for life.
Oklahoma State, but they're not any good. I mean, so
but that's
but
the
he has
point.
money.
They will become good because those schools are going to start having their boosters pay these kids up. And schools like Alabama and schools like Michigan, who do not have the deep pockets post graduation to be able to offer these NIL deals, as opposed to Berkeley, which has Silicon money, Stanford that has Silicon money. These are schools that were never really considered of it. You got Oregon that has Nike money. Now that they can find ways to pay these players, you're not going to have parity. You're going to have a top tier, and you're going to have the other group. But I think that top group is going to change.
Okay. And in Alabama, you're right about Alabama. They don't have that kind of money. But remember who he was talking to. He was talking to business leaders. He was saying that for a reason, for them to pony up money, for them to start paying. But I mean, Nick Saban always has an agenda. I don't trust him for nothing. But let me tell you, don't T. Boone Pickens sound like he used to own slaves or just own Sugarland or something, Sugarloaf or something?
It ain't good, bro. I'll give you that.
His history is not far away from that.
My God.
He's not one of those dudes that has a great philanthropic history.
But me personally, I just don't trust people who go by a first initial as their first name and their middle name, and I don't like H. Walter Scott. I don't like all that. T. Boone Pickens. No, I need to know your first name. I don't like all that. So
I think it's interesting thought, and it does sound like Saban is salty, and I just think he hasn't figured out. The system doesn't work well for what he has, to Brian and your point, like for how he's done things. So he's got to figure out how to make it work. It's just what it is. I do see that different teams could be at the top, and we could see more shift in that top 5, 6. I still think the top 25 is going to be the top 25, to your point, Coop, but I think we could see more shift depending on how recruiting goes and NIL deals go,
Yeah.
who can get who from different areas. And if you're in California, there's no reason for you to go to Alabama when you can go to
Right.
SC
No,
and
now
get
because
paid
HC got the
now.
right coach. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. Yeah.
Even without it to a degree, I mean, SC is still a destination always. Now you have all the money that's around LA. You got access to crazy amounts of deals. If I'm in the Bay or anywhere in California close, like why wouldn't I versus going to, you think about like Najee Harris or guys like that who went to Alabama before this. Why not? If you had an inkling to stay home, be near your family, then come to LA. You know what I mean? Or go to Stanford or whatever the case is. So I think it's going to be very interesting if you're
I
in
can
In
Denver.
tell you,
Los Angeles, whether you went to a school or not, you draw a line. You're on a side. You're either SC or UCLA, and you support it.
Absolutely.
So I worked for Alec, and Alec was a huge USC booster. Huge USC booster. And he was able to do that, never having any affiliation whatsoever with SC before coming to California and Los Angeles. He went to Eastern Michigan, and that's how he said, and that's how he was able to set. That's where he went, but he was able to set up the game between USC because he was boosting for both schools. But anyways,
yeah.
I do think that will be some change. I think exactly what you just said, Glenn. I also think there's going to be a New York team that's going to pop up there. There's just too much money.
Easily. Yeah.
There's just too much money. If you think of a college program out there, I don't know if it's going to be Syracuse. I don't know who it's going to be.
Yeah.
There's going to be a football team that is going to be able to get boosters to spend NIL money to get players to go there at some point.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah, I can tell you for a fact, Glenn, Najee Harris did not leave Antioch, California here in the Bay Area to go to Alabama because he loves the state.
Come on, man. Exactly, bro. Shannon Sharp said that. Exactly.
Yeah,
like,
I'm gonna tell you that right now. I know that for a fact. But
brothers ain't
but
been to
that's
the
why.
country.
Right. But that's why though it was just so important, these hires that Miami and USC made to get the right guy to sort of try to take away that Alabama dominance, man. And it's like US, like Brian said, USC has that money. Miami, they got a ton of money now. I mean, they got the most expensive coaching staff in the entire country, I think, because they're like raking money over there. They're just trying to bring anybody over there and paying them like top dollar to coach linebackers. You know what I mean? So they're trying to get players and recruiters. USC's doing the same thing. I think USC's a little farther along than Miami because offensively they got it. They still got problems on defense, but with Lincoln rallying that offense, man, and I think both programs are going to be back. It's going to be great to see, man. And I want to see some competition for Alabama, man, instead of just running over people all the time. So
definitely,
we'll see.
I love it. Nick Saban, man, stop crying, bro. You paid the players.
Yeah.
Let the players get their money, man.
Right.
If you lose a recruiter too, you'll be all right.
Yeah, he didn't say anything that was wrong other than they need to stop it. That was it. Everything else he said.
He is the highest paid employee in the state of Alabama.
Right.
With 7 national titles. I'm gonna need you to be quiet.
Come on, man. The NCT, he said the NCAA can't enforce their rules because it's not against the law, and that's the issue. That's the problem.
The NCAA doesn't really enforce too much.
Why should it be against the law?
Right.
It doesn't work for Nick Saban.
If this is where you get into the racial aspect of it. If these were not young black men predominantly getting offered big money to advertise or do whatever it is that you do with these NIL deals, I don't think Nick Saban would have as big a problem with it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's Travis Hunter he's talking about. He's
right. Who went to Jackson State?
He went to Jackson. He's not talking about the QB, the QB who goes to some other school and gets an NIL deal.
Right, exactly. And people still don't know where Jackson State is at. I'm just saying. They thought Jackson was a state. It was like, I didn't know Jackson was a state in the United States. So yeah. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm with you on that.
That's deep.
I mean, how you pick on a guy like Travis Hunter going to a historically black college, that's what got me right there. I'm like, come on, man. Seriously.
We didn't get too deep into it, but it is absolutely
interesting.
A racially motivated statement.
Yeah.
Interesting. Word. All right. Well, hey, this is a good show, man. I enjoy as always, bro. We're at the our last segment of the day. So I'm kind of gonna defer to you, Brian, because I think you're gonna say what needs to be said.
Real talk.
So am I going first?
Yeah.
Wow.
Probably last.
First,
now everybody might shut us off after this, but go ahead though.
First, let me say today is my sister's birthday. Happy birthday to my sister.
Hey,
happy birthday.
And happy birthday to Caressa, who will have a birthday before our next show.
No doubt.
And so happy birthday to both of them. I wanted to say a couple of things, and obviously we know where the topic's going to go with me. But the first thing is I have to take my hat off to Coach Kerr for being so exposed and open and willing to talk about something so emphatically that needed to be talked about yesterday with the tragedy that happened in Valdy, Texas. And, you know, I can't help but hop on my little soapbox for a moment. It is beyond ridiculous at this point for people to argue against gun control. And here's the thing. Most people don't. Again, one of the few things that we as Americans seem to agree on at 90% of people polled is that we need some level of gun control. That's not to say you want to take it out, but the NRA has so much power and so much, such an audacity that they're going to go to a state where now I think the number is up to 21 children and teachers are dead 5 days after or 4 days after, and have a rally to emphasize their point of view. It's disgusting, and we need to find a way as people to get past our politics and at least agree on what we agree on, and force these fucking politicians to get off their ass and do something. Because the same people, and I'm talking about the GOP right now, the same people that are jumping up and down talking about how we need to be pro-life, we can't have abortion because we're going to kill babies, watched 20 babies, 10-year-old babies die by one person in one instance, and said, but we need to have our rights to guns. And for every single person who is pro-life and anti-gun control, fuck you. There you go.
I defer my minute to Brian, so I'm out. Cool.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna do this. I was gonna do the same thing, but I'm just gonna shout out real quick to anybody from Howard that's listening to this, man. The Jordan brand is making Howard U its flagship
That's
HBCU
awesome.
school starting this fall. I've never been a big Michael Jordan fan. I might slightly like him like 10% after this deal, after reading this. I've never owned a pair of Jordans in my entire life, and I've seen them all since they first came out in 1984, 85 with the red and black ones and blue and black ones. Damn, I just probably dated myself on how old I am. But I see
Glenn does that for you every week.
but
Every
I
week.
see these HU brand Jordans, and I'm going to tell you, I don't know if you can see these. I don't think you can. But no, you can't see them. But anyway, I'm going to get these HU brand Jordans. This is going to be my first pair of Jordans I ever owned. So I might end up paying $250 for them, but they'll say HU on them and they're all white. Now I guess I'll keep them clean by never wearing them. But yeah, I just want to throw that out there.
I'll
Shout
get
out
you
You
to
should
mine
buy two and wear some.
I'll say I'll get you mine. I'll get you yours when I get mine. But yeah, bless.
Man.
My prayers are for those little ones and those teachers who
Please, God.
passed away.
Never. Real talk.
Their families, because I can't even imagine. And hopefully not just the politicians do something, but also regular people, because those gun stores are not owned by politicians. Those are regular people who sold those guns. So something has to happen. Hopefully we can figure it out. We love you guys. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next week. Peace.